Good morning. Welcome to Motherhood Life. I'm Julie. This is reading through the Bible in a year. We're reading through the Chronological Bible. Today we're reading from Genesis 25 to Genesis 26:33. Grab your coffee, tea, Kool-Aid, pop, soda, whatever it is that you drink. I've got coffee this morning in this mug of the hour. Very festive Christmas mug with reindeer. Love it. It's a big one. So I almost spilled it. I got a lot of coffee in there. So let us get to the Word of God this morning. It begins with a narration entitled Abraham Marries Keturah. Just as Isaac is comforted after his mother's death by taking a wife, so Abraham is comforted after Sarah's passing by taking a wife named Keturah. However, all of Abraham's sons, other than Isaac, were eventually sent away, presumably to ensure preeminence to Isaac and his descendants. The record of Abraham's offspring by Keturah lists 6 sons, 7 grandsons, and 3 great-grandsons, regarding whom any future reference is uncertain. So let's pick up with Genesis 25. Abraham took another wife, whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Jokshan was the father of Sheba and Dedan. The descendants of Dedan were Asherites and Letushites and Leumites. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Hanok, Abida, and Eldah. All these were descendants of Keturah. Abraham left everything he owned to Isaac, but while he was still living, he gave gifts to the sons of his concubines and sent them away from his son Isaac to the land of the east. This is a little narration entitled Death of Abraham. The Genesis record closes its account of Abraham's life with a brief account of his death and burial. Significantly, Ishmael and Isaac bury not only their father, but also, at least temporarily, any hostility which may have come between them over the years. All evidence from this point forward, however, indicates that the descendants of these two half-brothers will have virtually nothing in common with each other. The single known exception will come when Isaac's son, Esau, will take wives from the daughters of Ishmael. For now, one of the most significant characters in the unfolding story of God's dealings with mankind is laid to rest. But Abraham will be remembered throughout history as one of the most outstanding men of faith ever to have lived. Genesis 25:7. Altogether, Abraham lived 175 years. Then Abraham breathed his last and died at a good old age, an old man and full of years, and he was gathered to his people. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite. The field Abraham had bought from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried with his wife Sarah. And a tiny narration, the last account of Ishmael. Ishmael is 89 years old when his father Abraham dies, and he will live for another 48 years. He will have 12 sons and presumably many daughters, because the Genesis record will soon concentrate exclusively on the life of Isaac and his descendants. A last account of Ishmael and his sons is given at this point in Genesis 25:12. This is the account of Abraham's son Ishmael, whom Sarah's maidservant Hagar the Egyptian bore to Abraham. These are the names of the sons of Ishmael, listed in the order of their birth. Please bear with me on the pronunciation of the sons' names. Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, Kedar, Abdeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedemah. These were the sons of Ishmael, and these are the names of the 12 tribal rulers according to their settlements and camps. Altogether, Ishmael lived 137 years. He breathed his last and died, and he was gathered to his people. His descendants settled in the area from Havilah to Shur, near the border of Egypt, as you go toward Ashur, and they lived in hostility toward all their brothers. And this is a narration entitled Esau and Jacob. With the death of Abraham, the Genesis record begins to provide increasing detail regarding the lives of Abraham's descendants, and events are recorded at briefer intervals, whereas major events of the first 2,500 years have been chronicled as only a brief outline. The remainder of the Genesis record provides an in-depth look at Isaac's children and great and grandchildren. For the most part, the events speak for themselves. The people whose lives are recorded exhibit both the best and worst of human nature, typifying the moral struggles which encompass the human predicament and pointing up to the need for a God who can lift mankind above its own circumstances. The scene for the next 150 years is set when Rebekah gives birth to twins and is told prophetically that these two sons will be the fathers of nations which will in time struggle with each other for dominance. The account picks up immediately following the death of Isaac's father. Genesis 25:11. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac, who then lived near Beer Lahai Roi. This is the account of Abraham's son Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean from Paddan Aram, and sister of Laban, the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." Excuse me. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. So they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out, with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. And a tiny little narration that says, as Esau and Jacob grow into manhood, they take on individual characteristics and become especially favored. Esau by Isaac and Jacob by Rebekah. Genesis 25:27. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man, staying among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Narration entitled "A Birthright is Sold." An incident having extraordinary consequences is now recorded, which not only gives insight into the character of each man, but also has important implications for the further descent of the people through whom God has chosen to reveal himself. The event involves the transfer of the birthright belonging to Esau, the firstborn of the twins. By that birthright, Esau would stand to receive a double part of Isaac's estate and take over leadership of the family upon Isaac's death. Genesis 25:29. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." That is why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, "First, sell me your birthright." "Look, I am about to die," Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. And a little narration. Careless and apparently disinterested in the benefits and responsibilities attendant to the birthright, Esau unknowingly forfeits his opportunity to be the one in his generation through whom the blessings promised to his grandfather Abraham would pass. Esau's descendants will never be God's special people. In fact, pursuant to the prophecy given to Rebekah, in future years, Esau's descendants will indeed be subservient to the Hebrews, who will be the direct descendants of Jacob. With reference to the redness associated with Esau's birth, Esau's descendants will bear the name Edomites and will be a continuing source of friction for the Hebrew nation. The next narration is entitled Isaac Follows in Abraham's Footsteps. As his two sons engage in fraternal conflict, Isaac himself experiences moral conflict in a series of situations which are amazingly parallel to situations experienced by his father Abraham. First, Isaac encounters a famine and is forced to migrate to Gerar, where he lies about Rebekah exactly as Abraham lied about Sarah. He is then blessed with great wealth, as was Abraham, and finally has similar disputes over the same wells previously dug by his father. It is interesting to note the influence of a parent, and in a more general sense, the cycles of human behavior which one can observe throughout history. Picking up with Genesis 26:1. Now there was a famine in the land, besides the earlier famine of Abraham's time, and Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in this land for a while, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands and will confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and will give them all these lands, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because Abraham obeyed me and kept my requirements, my commands, my decrees, and my laws." So Isaac stayed in Gerar. When the men of that place asked him about his wife, he said, "She is my sister," because he was afraid to say she was my wife. He thought, "The men of this place might kill me on account of Rebekah, because she is beautiful." When Isaac had been there a long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked down from a window and saw Isaac caressing his wife Rebekah. So Abimelech summoned Isaac and said, "She is really your wife. Why did you say she is my sister?" Isaac answered, "Because I thought I might lose my life on account of her." Then Abimelech said, "What is this you have done to us? One of the men might well have slept with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us." So Abimelech gave orders to all the people, "Anyone who molests this man or his wife shall surely be put to death." Isaac plants crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold, because the Lord blessed him. The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up, filling them with earth. Then Abimelech said to Isaac, "Move away from us. You have become too powerful for us." So Isaac moved away from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. Isaac reopened the wells that had been dug in the time of his father Abraham, which the Philistines had stopped up after Abraham died, and he gave them the same names his father had given them. Isaac's servants dug in the valley and discovered a well of fresh water there, but the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen and said, "The water is ours." So he named the well Esek, because they disputed with him. Then they dug another well, but they quarreled over that one also. So he named it Sitnah. He moved on from there and dug another well, and no one quarreled over it. He named it Rehoboth, saying, "Now the Lord has given us room, and we will flourish in the land." From there he went up to Beersheba. That night the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you and will increase the number of your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham. Isaac built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord. There he pitched his tent, and there his servants dug a well. Meanwhile, Abimelech had come to him from Gerar with Azuath, his personal adviser, and, and Phicol, the commander of his forces. Isaac asked them, "Why have you come to me, since you were hostile to me and sent me away?" They answered, "We saw clearly that the Lord was with you. So we said, 'There ought to be a sworn agreement between us and you. Let us make a treaty with you that you will do us no harm, just as we did not molest you, but always treated you well and sent you away in peace. And now you are blessed by the Lord.'" Isaac then made a feast for them, and they ate and drank. Early the next morning, the men swore an oath to each other. Then Isaac sent them on their way, and they left him in peace. That day, Isaac's servants came and told him about the well they had dug. They said, "We've found water." He called it Sheba, and to this day the name of the town has been Beersheba. And that ends the reading of our word, the word of God for today. You have to excuse my kitty cat there. Thank you for joining me here at Mohud Life. I pray you all have a blessed day today.